Good morning, dear students. Our union government, under the leadership of Mr. Narendra Modi, has given impetus to creating awareness among the youth regarding their rights, duties, as enshrined in the Constitution. Let's take this opportunity on the eve of the 73rd Republic Day to spread consciousness about our fundamental rights, as contained in Part 3 of the Constitution, and most important, our fundamental duties, as contained in Part 4A of the Constitution. Let's begin. What are fundamental rights? Simply put, these are a charter of rights that are considered as basic rights that a citizen of a country should have, irrespective of his caste, gender, religion, sex, or economic status. Our Constitution has provided us with 6 fundamental rights, namely right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, right to equality, cultural and educational rights, and lastly, right to constitutional remedies. Let's have a brief insight into all of these one by one. Right to freedom under Article 19 to 22. Right to freedom guarantees all enlisted rights to all the citizens under Article 19. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom to practice any profession, freedom to reside and settle in any part of the country, freedom to move freely within the territory of India, freedom to form associations and unions, and freedom to assemble peacefully without arms. Now, in addition, it also guarantees protection of rights in respect of conviction for offences, right to education for children under the age of 14, protection of life and personal liberty, and protection against arrest and detention. A landmark judgment by the Supreme Court was People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India, in which the Supreme Court upheld the basic fundamental right of freedom. And in latest parlance, you all must have heard right to live with dignity, right to health, and most importantly, right to information. These have all been upheld by the apex court as fulfilling the right to freedom. Let's move on to right to equality, which is guaranteed under Article 14 to 18. Simply put, it refers to equality in the eyes of law, discarding any unfairness. All humans are born free and are equal in dignity and rights. The Constitution says that the government shall not deny to any person in India equality before law or equal protection of the laws. It means that the laws apply in the same manner to all, regardless of a person's status. So, therefore, in our country, the rule of law is what prevails. Under the Shaira Banu case versus Union of India, our Supreme Court upheld this basic right to gender equality by upholding the unconstitutionality of triple talaq. Right against exploitation. Now, this right aims at protecting all citizens of the country from environmental, domestic, and work hazards. Article 23 of the Constitution prohibits human trafficking and forced labor, and Article 24 prohibits employment of children in factories. People's Union for Democratic Rights versus Union of India. This is a very important case in the constitutional history of the country, where the Supreme Court held that child labor is a violation of the fundamental rights, and further also amended the Child Labor Amendment Act, also introduced the Child Labor Amendment Act, which introduced stringent punishment for offenders. In India, we've always seen a very common sight where small children are working in roadside dhabas, in hotels, and restaurants, and small shops. So, as an aware citizen today, you must know that all that is very, very unconstitutional and against the rule of law. Next, we move on to right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to Article 28. The Constitution of India always envisaged a secular model for the country and provides every person the right and freedom to choose and practice his or her own religion. And in a number of cases, the apex court has upheld secularism to be a part of the basic structure of the Constitution, hence cannot be amended. Freedom of religion or religious liberty is a principle that supports the freedom of an individual or community in public or in private, to manifest religion or his belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observe. It also includes the freedom to change one's religion and also at the same time give the right to an individual to not profess any religion or not practice any religion. In the famous S.R. Bomai case, the court ruled that religion has no role in state matters. Therefore, in India, the state took up the role of promoting all religions. Next, let's delve into cultural and educational rights. These have been guaranteed by the Constitution to religious and linguistic minorities in India to enable them to preserve their distinct culture, language, and script. Under Article 29, the Constitution protects interests of minorities, and 30 protects rights of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. So now if you're talking about the rights of minorities, let's also have a look at what is a minority or who is a minority. Article 30 of the Constitution talks about two types of minorities, religious and linguistic. But while it defines the categories of the minority communities, there is still no official definition of the word minority by the government. But let us also remember that the Supreme Court has upheld that scope of minority within this particular article is not only restricted to religious and linguistic minorities. Right to constitutional remedies. A mere declaration of fundamental rights in the Constitution is meaningless. It's just written in a piece of document. Therefore, we need to provide an effective machinery for their enforcement if and when they are violated. Article 32 does exactly this. It confers the right to constitutional remedies to the citizens of the country. So, when fundamental rights are violated, an aggrieved citizen can move both the Supreme Court under Article 32 and High Court under Article 26 through different types of writs. And we all must remember, since this is the basic right that promises enforcement of all other fundamental rights, hence it was always referred to as heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. Having discussed the 6 main fundamental rights and their and other rights that are involved in them, we must also talk about the importance of fundamental rights for a brief moment. The 6 fundamental rights are called by most constitutional experts as the 6 lamps of light. They are the beacon that the Constitution provides against any abuse of power against any citizen by any government agency. But also, while the rights give us freedom, they also do come with reasonable restrictions within the bounds of law. From fundamental rights, let's move on to fundamental duties. Gandhiji used to say that rights and duties are interlinked and both are equally important. Constitution makes it very clear that what is expected out of civilized citizens of the country in the name of duties. The fundamental duties were added into the Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act, but also note that they are still not enforceable in a court of law. You all can take a minute to go through all the fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution and reflect upon how well have they been fulfilled by you in the past, and also make a plan for better implementation in future. So, moving towards the end, I must reiterate that India has thrived as a democracy because of its power of integration, power of tolerance, and mutual respect that has been given to us by our forefathers through this living document, that is the Constitution of India. So, I hope today we leave as more aware citizens of this country. Thank you so much. All the best.